afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's lesson. This is now the last in our series of lessons for English First Additional Language for this period. My name is Renske Pieterse and I will be presenting together with Saipati Khatebe. And this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono, and it is broadcasted by Pakama Research and Development. Please note at the bottom of the screen there's a WhatsApp number. You're welcome to send questions to that number. There is a person on the other end that will respond to your questions. The number is 064 748 8913. But as you can see, it is on the screen. So what are we dealing with today? Listening and speaking and reading and viewing. We're doing the topics of orals and then summary writing. That is linked to the reading and viewing. So let's just have a look at the structure of your marks. First of all, you know that you have an SBA. So now up to last year with COVID, the SBA counted more than what the final test counted. But this year you will have the SBA marks will count 25% of your final mark. So how do we get to the 25%? There's an essay that you must write that counts 50 marks. There's a longer transactional task that will count 30 marks. Then you have your control test, which is a language test for 40 marks. You have a literature assignment for 35 marks. And then in your trial exam, you have your 3 papers, so it counts 250 marks. And that then is converted to 25%. On the other hand, your exam is going to count 75%. So what do we have for exam? We have paper 1, that's 80 marks. Paper 2, the literature for 70. Paper 3, creative writing, that's 100 marks. And then paper 4, which counts for 50 marks, and that is your oral, because in the total it is 300 marks. So the orals that you do during the year are not used to calculate your SBA marks. The orals are used to calculate the final exam mark. And that's your listening, your prepared speech, and then you have a choice between unprepared reading and prepared and unprepared speech. So let's unpack the orals. So for listening and speaking, it's part of the skills. Remember, I've told you before that we teach you skills in English First Additional Language. We don't teach topics like the other subjects, but these skills are so valuable because you will carry them through your life, you will use them forever and ever, and you can apply them in your other subjects. So we have a communication model. What does that mean? It means like me. I'm speaking. I'm the speaker. I have a message that I'm bringing you today, and you are the listeners. And the context in which communication takes place is the model of communication. We must always remember who are we speaking to, why are we speaking, and very importantly, you cannot just focus on the words, because body language is extremely important, because through body language you can actually learn what a person is saying. Maybe there's something behind a person's words. So how does paper 4 look like? First of all, as I've said, counts 50 marks. You have a listening test for 10 marks. Then you have your prepared speech for 20 marks. Everybody must do a prepared speech. And then you have either your unprepared speech or a prepared reading. Now today I'm going to discuss the skills that you need in order to do well. Because you can really plan and prepare for this paper, and nobody can then get below 60%. There's no reason for you not to get at least 60% and more for the orals, because it is a skill and all of you can talk. We hear you talking in class. So it's important that you focus on all these things. Let's now first of all look at the listening test. When you listen, there are certain principles for good listening. You must pay attention. You must focus on the speaker. This is not just listening in general. Focus on the speaker. Look at him or her, because the facial expressions and the body language can also communicate a meaning. It's easy to make a mistake when somebody is saying something if you're not actually focused on what the person is saying. If you may be doing something else. I know people think they can multitask. Well, it's true. Females can multitask. Men cannot at all. But when you listen for study purposes, it's always good to be focused on the speaker, because then you will gather all the information that you need. If you sit in class and you daydream, then you will not hear what your teachers are saying to you. Practice active listening. So you must repeat in daily life when you meet with a person. Make sure that you heard the person correctly by repeating what the person said. Did I understand you correctly? This is what you expect of me. This is what you said to me. And in a listening comprehension test, you must try to repeat the information when you get the test to ensure that you get the most possible marks for the listening. Furthermore, you must pay attention to the structure. Normally, when you do a listening test, the teacher will tell you, today we're going to do a listening test that's based on the challenges brought along by COVID. So then you know what you are going to hear and you must listen for that. You will then understand what the structure, the gist of the passage is. Even in less formal conversations, speakers often structure their discussions. You don't start at the end and then you end up at the beginning. You start at the beginning, you tell a story. And often we tell people, I want to tell you something that happened to me. Then you know what you're going to listen to. Or I want to tell you a joke. Then you know it's something that's going to be funny. Listen for key words in a listening test. What words are emphasized? Now, when your teacher administers the listening test to you, these are the steps that you will follow, or he will follow with you. You will receive a blank page. So you will have a blank page and a pen. Then you must listen to the information shared by the teaching regarding the information on the text. Like I said, the teacher will tell you, for example, it's about COVID. Then your passage will be approximately 350 words in length. So it won't take too long. You will be able to listen with understanding. Then your teacher will read through the text to familiarize you with the context. During that first reading, you're not allowed to make a note. During the first reading, you just listen. Then during the second reading, the text will be read at normal pace. And during this reading, you may make listening notes. So it's important that you jot down names so that you remember names, or you jot down certain events. After the second reading, you will be given the questions. Now, sometimes the teacher may hand out the questions before she starts reading to you to save time, but then you will be requested to turn over the page, because you're not allowed to see the questions before you respond to the questions. Then you will be given the questions and you must then answer them. They will follow the requirements of the Barrett's taxonomy. In other words, 40% of the marks will be, if we think of our iceberg again, 40% of the marks will be the top, the easy questions. Then 40% will be inference, just below the surface where you have to think a bit. And then 20% will be your opinion-based question, the open-ended questions where you can give your own opinion. Then after that, the test will be marked and be handed back to you to be filed in your SBA file. Now, what must you do as a learner? You must demonstrate these listening skills. You must pay complete attention and search for the meaning of the text. Ensure that you understand the message of the text. by making comparisons, deducing meaning, reflecting on what has been said. Remember when we did the comprehension test, we discussed the reading skills, the prediction, the links that you make, you think about how is this applicable to what I've done in life so far. You also think about the picture that you draw in your mind of it. Use those reading skills when you listen, because it is essentially a passage that you are listening to. Jot down meaningful notes. Don't doodle. Don't make just funny drawings. Write down important notes that you think might be asked in the test. Paraphrase key points, that means summarize and explain them in your own words. And then lastly, you must identify the key aspects as the teacher is reading to you. So that's the listening test. 10 marks, you can get full marks for the listening test if you apply all these tips that I've given or shared with you. Then we go to the prepared speech. Now what we've discovered through the years is that there are certain shortfalls in the prepared speech, and I'm going to share that with you. First of all, there's not enough proof of research done. A prepared speech must be a topic that you've done research on. You can't do a prepared speech on my past holiday. You must do a prepared speech on a topic where you have to research the topic. And because about 20% of your information should be based on facts. Often, learners just give us a response, a speech, and it's reflective or theoretical, feelings, emotions, and there's no proof of what the learner is saying. Sometimes the topic that you choose are topics are irrelevant, or you're not able to really access the topic. Often learners misuse the cue cards, or they use it incorrectly. I'm going to tell you how to use cue cards correctly. Often the contents is not well developed, it's not well structured, it's not logical. The presentation might lack fluency and a natural delivery. You must know your speech, you must know your topic so that you can just talk to your audience. And often when learners apply visual stimuli, the visual stimuli are ineffectively used and it doesn't really serve a purpose. And then there's a lack of seriousness by many candidates. You will hear teachers complain. I have 10 learners who are refusing to come and do a prepared speech. Why on earth would you refuse to do a prepared speech? It is part of your final exam. You have to do a prepared speech and you can do so well in it. And then if your oral marks, if you get nearly 40 out of 50 for your oral marks, can you see that you already have 40 marks out of the 250 of your final exam? So please don't mess around. Don't not apply serious principles when you prepare for the prepared speech. Tips for prepared speech. You must first of all show evidence of planning. You must use communication skills such as emphasis or pause or pitch. If you want to ask a question, your voice will lift. You will make eye contact with your audience. Use your introduction and your conclusion effectively. Develop your points logically and effectively, and respond to the questions of the presentation. In other words, respond to the topic. Answer the topic. So let's talk about how to write a prepared speech. What is my first step? Must do research. For research, you can either go to a library or you can visit the internet, because you must find information that you can present. And the information must be relevant to the topic. Make notes in a notebook. Don't just read through it and then think you have a speech. You must make notes so that you can put them all together. And very importantly, write down the source of your information, because you must refer to the source. We're not allowed to say things and then not cite our references, because that is plagiarism, and I'm going to talk about plagiarism later on. Check if you still need additional facts and statistics so that you can support the ideas in your speech. Then when you write your speech, first of all, an introduction. Plan your introduction so that you can grab the attention of the learners. Think of the essay topic that we presented with that fish hook that was in the lip of the learner. You must grab the attention. It must be a hook, so that when you start with your speech, everybody in the class is mesmerized and they want to listen to you. Good ways to begin a speech are, for example, using a well-known quotation from a well-known person. By using a rhetorical question, have you ever wondered how our lives would have been if we had not been in a COVID situation, for example? And you must do something unusual maybe, like showing a picture. So you start your speech by showing a picture, or by even singing your first sentence. Anything unusual will grab the attention of your audience. And then you must create your thesis statement. What does that mean? It clearly states the main idea of your speech in one sentence, so that the audience knows what you're going to talk about. And for a persuasive speech, make sure that it reflects your view of the subject. Or for an argumentative speech, you must present your view on it. Then the main body of the speech. Now think again, I'm going to link this all the time to the other topics that we've done. In an essay, when we discussed the essay, we said there must be an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So it's the same structure that we follow here, even though it's just a speech. You must provide 3 main ideas at least to support your thesis. Brainstorm some possible main ideas to support the thesis statement. Now, what does brainstorm mean? You know what a storm is. It's the thunder and lightning, and it's making a lot of noise. There might be wind. So link it to your brain now. So it means that in your brain, you must think up ideas, just random ideas, anything that comes to mind that's related to your thesis, to the topic. Write them down, and then you start crossing out, no, this doesn't make sense. This makes sense. I will speak about this. Take your 3 major supporting ideas and provide evidence for each of them. Make sure to cite your sources using the information that you discovered during your research. Because plagiarism is not allowed. Plagiarism is a no-go. We hear a lot of complaints from universities and colleges that complain that when these students start at university, they look something up on the internet and then they just write it down as is. And you know what? There are programs available where you just put in the sentences written by the learner and it will tell you whether it's actually from a source. And then you get 0 for that, because it's like stealing. You're stealing somebody's ideas. But if you say, in the Star of 19 January, it was said that, then you have cited the source and nobody can tell you you've stolen it, because you have acknowledged it. Then in the main body, you must also organize your speech. You must take the information and arrange it logically. Start with the main points or smaller chunks and then break it down overall. Remember, when we did the essay, we said every paragraph must have a main idea. Use supporting information like examples, statistics, a testimony or a narrative that will back your claim. And arrange your points in logical order. You must explain what you're going to talk about and why it is important to you. And then, remember when we discussed the essay, we said you must use linking words. Words like, first of all, most importantly, furthermore. By using those linking words, conjunctions, you are actually bringing all the ideas together logically. It doesn't just sound like separate ideas that you jumble together. When you write your conclusion, you can see little super dog is very excited about the fact that it's now a conclusion. You must also write it down and briefly restate the main points of your speech. Take the listener through the speech again, but in an abbreviated form, the summary. We're going to discuss summary techniques in the second session of today's session, and those summary techniques you must use just to briefly summarize your points. What's your role as a learner? Unless you are given a topic, choose a topic that you are interested in and a topic that will be interesting to the group that you are going to talk to. Research a topic, but don't plagiarize. Select the facts that are interesting so that you don't bore the audience to death. Plan and organize your speech. Like I've said, brainstorm your ideas, incorporate audio-visual resources. And your speech must have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So this was now a summary. You have to make use of voice variation to communicate your feelings. Your voice can go up and down in scale, pitch. Be loud or soft. That's the volume. Vary in pace. So it goes slower or faster. Take on different tones. You can have an angry tone or you can have a smiley tone, a happy tone, depending on the information that you want to convey. Make use of the best vocabulary you have. When you type out your speech, click on certain words and find synonyms. Because we want you to embrace this year and learn more words so that you are able to utilize them in all your papers across all your subjects. Don't get stuck on the easy words like happy and sad. Find synonyms. The language that you choose must be appropriate for the occasion. You can definitely not use swear words or slang when you do your prepared speech. You must avoid slang and personal references. How to give a speech. First of all, sound confident. Stand up straight, look your audience in the eye and make eye contact. You must sound confident, and you can only sound confident if you know your topic. It's not something you can quickly jot down in the morning before you have to do your speech. Vary the pitch and the volume of your voice to emphasize certain points. Speak in complete sentences and don't hesitate. Don't use because then it distracts from the message of your speech. And be friendly. Look at the audience. Don't look down. Don't look so mad that you hate showing everybody, I hate doing this. No, for those 10 minutes that you are on the stage, you are going to deliver a good speech with confidence. Ask rhetorical questions. Have you ever wondered, would you like to be able to do something? Rhetorical question means it's a question to which you don't expect an answer. You don't expect somebody to put up their hands and answer, but you want them to think about what you are saying. A few tips for when you show your illustrations. Do not face the pictures. Don't turn around and look at the pictures while you are talking about them. They must either just be up and then you don't look at them, or if you use a PowerPoint, don't write out your whole speech on the PowerPoint, just put the picture. You must speak to your individuals. And many speakers show too many pictures, then they become ineffective. They distract from the message of your speech. Choose wisely. And do not read the projected text to the audience. If you have written out your speech on the smartboard, if it's reflected there, don't read it. You must speak to the audience. And use the pictures only to emphasize a certain point. If you can't find a suitable picture, then don't utilize pictures. And don't show pictures to the audience that would be absolutely meaningless. And don't show diagrams that are too small or complicated, because then nobody can see what you're trying to show them. Here is a little structure of how you can plan your speech. We call it a speech organizer. You have your topic there, then you write your introduction, you write your main body, and then we get to how do we write the main body. Remember the Peel principle, the point that you make, your example, how you explain it, and how you link it. Aha, do you remember this Peel principle that you can apply across all your subjects, that you can apply across essays, open-ended questions? So when you do your speech, when you prepare your body, make your point, give an example, explain it, and link it to the topic. And that you do for 3 statements, and then you have your conclusion at the end. What must you do as a learner? Prepare cue cards. They must be of reasonable size and only have the key points. There I've given you a picture of cue cards. You can see they're colorful, they only have the main points, and they are of a reasonable size, so you can easily hold them in your hand. Don't have it on an A4 paper, and don't have little small papers and that you page through very quickly, because you will lose your space. Practice, practice, practice. You have to stand in front of a mirror. Find your own style of talking. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Not all of us are Eddie Murphys. When you stand in front of the mirror, practice using your facial expressions and gestures. See what is effective. And talk around your keywords. The keywords must guide you. That's why you must know your speech. And I want to emphasize, you cannot do it quickly. It will take you time to do your research, and you will get your topics well in advance. Do your research, write it down, and then start preparing your speech so that you can deliver it with confidence. Remember, you are in control of the speech. The audience doesn't know the content. You are going to wow them with whatever you say. And you are going to surprise them maybe with your conclusion. If you make a mistake, they won't even realize it, because they don't know the contents of your speech. So if you make a mistake, just carry on. Then we get to the unprepared speech. Now this is where you have the choice between unprepared speech and the prepared reading. I first want to talk about unprepared speech. In the unprepared speech, we assess your ability to present the speech in order to speak on a topic, express your own point of view using relevant and pertinent information, and apply language structures and conventions in context. What must you do as a learner? Decide how you will interpret the topic. Jot down the ideas that come to mind. You can use a mind map. You can write it just down in point form. Include at least 3 different points that you can explore. So you can see how it's linked to the prepared speech. Prepared speech, 3 points in the body. Here as well, you have 3 points that you are developing for your speech. Try to back up your points with evidence, but remember, you don't get a chance to do research. So if you don't have any evidence, then it will be difficult, but try to prove it with evidence. Draw on your experiences and things that you already know. Decide on a catchy introduction and a strong concluding statement. And number the points in the order that you're going to use them, because then you will have control over your unprepared speech. The procedure will be as follows. You will be given a topic by your teacher. Then you will get 3 to 5 minutes in which to prepare. You will not be given any resources to use except your pen and paper. Your response should be 2 to 3 minutes long. So you can see that you cannot just write 3 sentences. That's not an unprepared speech. It must at least cover a page. And once you have delivered the speech, the teacher will take in your notes, because that must also then be filed with the rubric in your SBA file as proof when oral moderation takes place. Your teachers will explain to you about oral moderation in class. Then we get to prepared reading. So this is now the last aspect. When you are going to do prepared reading, choose your passage carefully. Practice reading it aloud, making sure that you read loudly enough. It doesn't help if your voice is like this. You have to speak up when you read. Read with as much expression as you can. Vary your tone and pace. Can you see how all these things are linked together? Pace, tone must be varied. Stress certain important words. Project your voice so that people can hear you. Make eye contact with your audience. There's nothing worse than a learner that just reads like this and no eye contact is made. There's a difference between prepared reading and the speech. The speech you talk while you just glance down at your cue cards, but with the reading, you actually read and just glance up occasionally to make eye contact. When you look up and you find it difficult, you can put your finger on the place where you are just looking up so that you don't lose your space. Use the punctuation marks in the passage to help you pace your reading and to assist with your expression. A comma means you can pause. A full stop means a longer pause. A question mark, you will allow your voice to go up for a question. Remember to use body language to show the audience that you are interested in the passage that you are reading. Remember, prepared reading, you get the passage to prepare before the time. Don't just grab the passage and read it in the class. Put the following elements in your reading to increase reading abilities. Speak clearly by pronouncing the words correctly. This will also play a key role in your listeners being able to hear you. I want to use an example of determine. The word determine is pronounced determine. I determine what the problem is, or they will determine who stole the money. But it is pronounced by many people as determine. That's not the correct pronunciation of the word. So if you mispronounce a word, then the audience won't understand what you are talking about. Now, how should you find the correct pronunciation? There's just a little extract. I know it's very small, but if you go to Google and you type in the word, then there's a little thingy that looks like a megaphone, a speaker. If you click on that, then somebody will give you the correct pronunciation of the word. For us people who are not first language speakers, it's often difficult to pronounce correctly, and even home language speakers often find it difficult to pronounce a word correctly. So there's nothing wrong with going to the dictionary and finding the correct pronunciation of a word. If you mess up a word, stop, breathe, ignore the laughter because the children in the class might laugh, re-say the word and move on. Please never ever get so flustered that you say, oh no, I'm going to start again. Especially with speeches. Learners stop and then they say, oh no, I've forgotten my words, let me start again. They get so nervous. If you've prepared well, you won't be nervous. Do not just rattle off the words. Speak slowly, but not too slowly. But slow enough so that everybody can hear you clearly. Put emotion in your voice. And do not read in a monotone. You want to sound clear and not like a robot. Now, before we come to the end of the session, I just want to remind you that the oral component is one that you have a chance to prepare extremely well for, and you can do it so well because it's part of your final exam. So don't waste your time. Don't mess up by not conducting these tasks when your teachers tell you. They will give you ample time. They will tell you on this day we're going to write the listening. Then come to class prepared. If they tell you here's your prepared speech topics, you must deliver it on this and this day, be prepared. Prepare sufficiently in advance. And even for your last task, whether it's prepared reading or an unprepared speech, make sure that you are prepared for it. We're now going to take a short break of 5 minutes, and then after that we will continue with the discussion on the summary writing. Enjoy the break.
Good afternoon, grade 12 learners, and welcome back to our e-file grade 12 revision program. My name is Sipati Ratebe, and I will be focusing on reading and viewing, looking at summary writing. Right. What is really summary writing? Summarizing is how we take larger selections of text and reduce them to their bare essentials. The gist, the key ideas, the main points that are worth noting and recommending. Remember, when you write a summary, you are giving us a condensed account of a longer reading text. But what is important is that you've got to know that summary is the most important skill in all subjects. That is why it is important that we need to master it. It is a very, very important skill. Then, how do we do it? We strip away the extra words and examples of any text that you have been given. It is important for you to be aware of the less important facts in any text. And those facts, we strip them away. We focus on the heart of the matter. You've got to know what is the main idea that you are supposed to focus on. We try to find the keywords and phrases that still manage to capture the gist of what we have read. We must also try to capture the main ideas and the crucial details necessary to support them. So what are the requirements of a summary? Read the passage. It is important that you read with understanding, because if you read with understanding, you'll be able to know what is expected of you. Remember all the reading strategies we spoke about? Yes. Now is the time for you to employ all of those strategies. I would love to believe that you remember that. Okay, let me just remind you of those strategies. You remember we spoke about predict as one of the strategies. So as you read your text, be in a position to think of what might happen. The second one, you also have to connect. So as you read your passage, make it a point that you are able to make a personal connection. And then you've got to visualize. It is important that you also visualize as you read the text. Question, come up with question and answers as you read that text. And then you also have to clarify. You've got to come up with the main idea. So you make some kind of investigation which would help you to come up with main ideas. And lastly, you've got to evaluate. So as you read, it is also important that you come up with some judgment of the text. Remember, I was just reminding you of those strategies. So it is important that when you read any text, you read it with understanding. That will help you to understand exactly what is expected of you. And the second requirement is that you've got to read instruction and summarize in own words within 70 words. Let's have a look at that bullet. You read the instruction. It is important to follow the instruction. What is it that is expected of you from the instruction? After you have read the instruction, you then summarize. But what is important is that you've got to summarize using your own words. And those words, they need to be within 70 words. Anything outside that, it won't be credited. So it is important that you stick to the required length. Adhere to the expected length of 70 words. Then you write down 7 main facts responding to instruction. The facts that you are going to come up with, they need to respond to the instruction. That is why it is very, very important that you read the instruction with understanding. Right. What are the steps that you need to follow? These are what we call the golden rules. Step number 1, you need to delete. Delete everything that it is less important. All that needs to be eliminated. This might include personal opinion, it might include examples, and many more. The second golden rule, it's you keep. Keep that which addresses the instruction. Thirdly, you substitute. Remember, one of the instructions is that you've got to write in your own words. That is why it is important that you also need to substitute. Step number 4, you list all the facts that you would have come up with. And lastly, you write your final piece. So those are the five steps that you need to follow when you do summary writing. You delete, you keep, you substitute, you list, and you write. Let's have a look at this example so as to get a better understanding of how you go about writing a summary. Let's look at the instructions. This is how the instruction goes. As the head prefect at your school, you have been asked to address the grade 11 learners on how to be a good leader. Read the text below and list 7 points that you will include in your speech on how to be a good leader. The first thing that you've got to be mindful of is that you've got to list 7 points in full sentences using a total of approximately 70 words. Number your sentences 1 to 7. It is important that you number your sentences. Write only 1 point per line. Please take note of that. You cannot bring 2 points in one line. 1 point per line. Use your own words as far as possible. Indicate the total number of words you have used in brackets at the end of your summary. It is also important that you indicate the total number of words. And that is where honesty comes in. You've got to write the exact amount of words that you would have used in your summary. Let us look at the instructions carefully. It says, the first one says, list 7 points in full sentences using a total of approximately 70 words. How many facts are you to use? 7. You only come up with 7 facts. And each of those has to have a verb. Start with the verb. And you've got to use no more than 70 words. So that is the first instruction. 7 facts, full sentences, no more than 70 words. Let's have a look at number 2. Number your sentences from 1 to 7. Don't use hashtag or asterisk or any other. You've got to number them from 1 to 7. Write only 1 point per line, which is 1 fact per line. Let's have a look at the fourth one. Use your own words as far as possible. In using your own words, you may use synonyms. You may take long, complicated sentences and change those into short, simple sentences. Indicate the total number of words you have used in brackets at the end of your summary. Make sure you count the words correctly. That is what I said. Make sure you count the words correctly. Right, let's have a look at step number 1, which is delete. Read the instruction. Like I said, it is important that you understand what is required of you, and you can only get that if you read the instruction with understanding. The second thing that you've got to do, you read the extract given. Isn't it that you will be given an extract which you've got to read and summarize? Yes. So you've got to read that extract. And how so? You apply those strategies that I spoke about earlier for you to understand the text. You read the extract again. You don't just read it once. You read it again. And as you are reading that, those strategies, you employ them as you read the text. Use a pen or pencil and delete the sentences or phrases that are not relevant to the question. Isn't it that you're going to have a question? The instruction will clearly stipulate what the question is. So you've got to answer the question. Anything that does not relate to the question, all that has to be eliminated. And this is the question: what do I have to do to be a good leader? Right, let's have a look at that text. And as we read those first 3 paragraphs, we would then apply the first golden rule of delete. Let me read the first 3 paragraphs. Being a leader at school does not always mean you have to have perfect grades, but you should show a positive attitude towards your classes and give your best effort to everything. A good leader is someone who understands different positions of authority. You may not agree 100% with your teachers and parents all the times, but you should always maintain a respectful, pleasant attitude towards them. If you know how to do something in class that others do not, offer to help them. Ask in a nice way if you can help students with classwork, as long as it is fine with the teacher. Let's have a look at the first paragraph there. What information do we find there which is less important? Remember what I said you've got to do when you delete? Look for that which is less important. Sometimes it might be examples. Sometimes it might be personal opinions. Sometimes it could be statistics. All of that you eliminate. Let's have a look at the first paragraph there. Being a leader at school does not always mean you have to have perfect grades, but you should show a positive attitude towards your classes and give your best effort to everything. What are we going to delete there? Let's see. The first line is being deleted because that is additional information. Right. Then as we move to the second paragraph, which says, a good leader is someone who understands different positions of authority. You may not agree 100% with your teachers and parents all the times, but you should always maintain a respectful, pleasant attitude towards them. This time around, I went ahead of you to assist you in seeing all of that is not important. And we have already deleted the first line there. A good leader is someone who understands different positions of authority. That is just additional information. Let's now move to the third paragraph. If you know how to do something in class that others do not, offer to help them. Ask in a nice way if you can help students with classwork, as long as it is fine with the teacher. Do we have any additional information there that needs to be eliminated? Let's see, what can we eliminate there? Ask in a nice way if you can help students with classwork, as long as it is fine with the teacher. That is just additional information. Let's move on to the next paragraph then. As we move to the next paragraph, remember the question, how to be a good leader. As we try to come up with the main ideas, remember the question, how to become a good leader. Whatever that you keep and whatever that you delete, it has to address the question. Right. Let's move on to the next paragraph now. Being a trustworthy person is a quality of a good leader. If you say one thing to one person, but a different thing to someone else, it will be found out that you are not someone who can be trusted, and people do not want a leader whom they cannot trust. Even if you do not like a certain person, he or she should still be treated like everyone else. Being consistent in how you treat everyone is an important way to build and maintain trust. Let's have a look at the fourth paragraph there. And what is it that needs to be deleted? And what is it that needs to be kept? It says being a trustworthy person is a quality of a good leader. If you say one thing to one person, but in a different thing to someone else, it will be found out that you are not someone who can be trusted, and people do not want a leader whom they cannot trust. Let's see what is additional information there. If you say one thing to one person, but in a different to someone else, it will be found out that you are not someone who can be trusted, and people do not want a leader whom they cannot trust. That is our additional information, which we have to eliminate, of course. Let's have a look at the next paragraph. Even if you do not like a certain person, he or she should still be treated like everyone else. Being consistent in how you treat everyone is an important way to build and maintain trust. Is there something that we need to delete there? Any additional information? Let us see. Yes, we do. Even if you do not like certain people, he or she should still be treated like everyone else. That is additional. Let's have a look at the second line. Being consistent in how you treat everyone is an important way to build and maintain trust. Does that address our question? Yes, it does. So we keep that. Let's have a look at the last two paragraphs and read that through. If your team has just lost a big game, do not become negative. Say things like, everyone did a great job. This will help your teammates know that you believe in them. A good leader is always positive. Let's have a look at that paragraph. Is there any additional information that needs to be deleted? Let's see. Yes, there is. If your team has just lost a big game, do not become negative. You've got to say things like, everyone did a good job. And this will help your teammates know that you believe in them. That is additional information. And what do we keep? A good leader is always positive. That addresses our question. Doesn't it? Yes, it does. Let's move on to the next paragraph then. A leader does not participate in bullying or gossip but makes all students feel welcome and respected. Do we have any additional information there? Any examples? Do we have quotes? Do we have personal opinions? I don't see any of those. Let's see if there is something that we need to delete there. Nothing from that paragraph. Then we move on to our second stage or second step, which is keep. What is it that you need to keep? Write down the sentences that are relevant to the question. And what is the question? How to be a good leader. All those sentences that are relevant, you need to write them down. Reread to make sure the sentences are relevant to the topic, which is how to be a good leader. So what is it that we have kept here? The first one, we kept this, but you should show a positive attitude towards your classes and give your best effort to everyone. The second one, you may not agree 100% with your teachers and parents all the times, but you should always maintain a respectful, pleasant attitude towards them. The third one, if you know how to do something in class that others do not, offer to help them. The fourth one, being a trustworthy person is a quality of a good teacher. And the fifth one, being consistent in how you treat everyone is an important way to build and maintain trust. The sixth one, a good leader is always positive. And lastly, a leader does not participate in bullying or gossip, but makes all students feel welcome and respected. Now we move on to the next step. All of these are the facts that we have kept. Step number 3, substitute. One of the instructions is to use your own words. So that is why we have to employ the step substitute. Try to replace some of the words or phrases with one word, that is with a synonym, omit examples, omit adjectives, change the sentences into active or passive voice. However, you've got to be very careful not to change the meaning of the sentence. Let's go back to our text. How to be a good leader. Now we're moving on to the third step, which is substitute. What is it that we are going to substitute there? Let's have a look. With the first fact, nothing has been substituted there, but then let's move on to the second one. We have put in, you've got to be a respectful person. The third fact there, if you know how to do something in class that others do not, offer to help them. We have substituted that with be willing to assist, right? Let's move on to the fourth one. And substitute. The fourth one, nothing has been substituted there, as well as the fifth one. But now we go to the sixth one, which says stay positive. And lastly, a leader does not participate in bullying or gossip, but makes all students feel welcome and respected. What is it that we substitute there? We put in take part. You don't take part in bullying or gossip. All of these are done in an attempt to bring out each and every phrase in your own words. Remember, that is a requirement that we've got to do, putting it in your own words. Let's move on to step number 4, which is list and write. What do you do here? You list the sentences that you would have come up with. Number them from 1 to 7. Make sure there is only one fact per line. Count the number of words and write it down in brackets. We've spoken about that as well. And write the final effort. Draw a line through your rough draft and make sure the final is clearly indicated. It is important that you draw a line through your rough draft. If you don't do that, your teacher or any other person will mark the draft. So make it a point that you draw a line through your rough draft and make sure that your final piece is clearly indicated. Let's have a look at our topic, how to be a good leader. Then we go into list and write. The first one, always try your best. Then we've got the total number of words in that sentence, it's 4. It is important that you also indicate the number of words in a sentence so that at the end of it, when you add up, you must still be within 70 words. Be respectful to parents and teachers. That carries 6 words. Always be willing to help those who do not know. I've got 10 words there. Be a trustworthy person with 4 words. Treat everyone in the same way every time. The number of words there is 8. Point number 6, stay positive at all times. 5 words. And lastly, do not take part in bullying or gossip, which gives us 8 words. Let's look at our word count there. It comes to 45 words. So we are within the required number of words, which is very good of us. Now, how do we mark summary? Let's have a look at the marking guideline. On my right-hand side, we have the candidate's responses. On the left-hand side, we do have the quotations. Let's have a look at the quotations and what responses we have. Remember, candidates may phrase the facts differently. However, the quotations remains the same. Let's have a look at the first one. The quote says, but you should show a positive attitude towards your classes and give your best efforts to everything. Let's have a look at how candidates might answer that. Always try your best. Be positive. As you look at that, remember what I said earlier. We may have different phrases as long as they address the quote. The second one says, you may not agree 100% with your teacher and parents at all times, but you should always maintain a respectful, pleasant attitude towards them. And this is the phrase that we have there. Be respectful to adults. The third one, if you know how to do something in class that others do not, offer to help them. And our phrase there is always be willing to help others. I'm sure you can now see that we're trying to put it in our own words without changing the meaning of the original phrase. That is very important. The fourth one says, being a trustworthy person is a quality of a good leader. And then we have, always be honest, be reliable, be dependable. The fifth one, being consistent in how you treat everyone is an important way to build and maintain trust. And then we've got to be fair to everyone, treat everyone the same. A good leader is always positive, which is number 6, and stay positive. Lastly, a leader does not participate in bullying or gossip, but makes all students feel welcome and respected. Do not take part in bullying or gossip, or just show respect. So that is the marking guideline, which your teacher or any other person who would be responsible for marking your piece would have to follow. And the marking guideline continues. How do we mark this? Marking is on the basis of the inclusion of valid material and the exclusion of invalid material. Summary is out of 10. 7 goes to the points that you would have mentioned, and 3 marks goes to language, giving us a total of 10. Right, how do we distribute the language mark when candidate has not quoted verbatim? For 1 to 3 points correct, we award 1 mark. If the candidate has given 4 to 5, we then award 2 marks. And if the candidate has 6 to 7 points correct, we give a full mark of 3. So that rule is applicable only when the candidate has not quoted verbatim. And how do we then distribute the language mark when candidate has quoted verbatim? For 6 to 7 quotes, we award no language mark is awarded. What do we mean by that? If you have not made any effort to use your own words in any of the facts, you forfeit the 3 marks on language. You will only have 7 marks for the points. If you have 4 to 5 quotes, you will get only 1 mark for language, and if you do have 2 to 3 quotes, you will have 2 marks for language. Note the following. Like I said earlier, it is important that you count the number of words, and you've got to be very honest in counting those, the total number of words. Don't write 70 if you've got 95, because your teacher definitely are going to count those. So let's try to be honest in this regard. Right. We're still on our activity number 5. Let's have a look at the responses, one of the responses that our candidate may come up with. This is the response that one of the candidates came up with. The first fact is that you don't have to have perfect goals. Have a positive attitude and stay positive. You should always maintain a respectful, pleasant attitude towards them. Say one thing to one person to be a trustworthy person. A leader does not support bullies or gossip. And last but not least, always ask if you can help. Being a trustworthy person is a quality of a good leader. This candidate came up with the 8th fact there, and it says, treat everyone as important to build trust. Remember, the instruction you're supposed to have only 7, not 8. So if for any reason you write 8 facts, 9 facts, 10 facts, the marking will be done up until the 7th fact, and the rest will not be considered. Right. The marking continues there. Let's have a look at the first line there. You don't have to have perfect goals. That is incorrect. That's an incorrect fact. So the candidate did not score any mark on that one. The second one, have a positive attitude and stay positive. That is correct. It's fact number 1. Let's look at the third one. You should always maintain a respectful, pleasant attitude towards them. That is also correct. However, that is a quote. That is why we have indicated that with the letter Q to show that that is a quote. The fourth one, say one thing to one person to be a trustworthy person. That is incorrect. The fifth one, a leader does not support bullies or gossip. That is correct. It's fact number 7. Number 6, always ask if you can help. Fact number 3. That is correct as well. Fact number 7, being a trustworthy person is a quality of a good leader. That is a quote. However, it is correct. That is fact number 4. So we mark it correct as well. We've got the 8th point there. Treat everyone as important to build trust. That is not correct. We only mark up until fact number 7. Remember what I said? Whether you write 15 facts, 10 facts, 8 facts, it will only be marked up until fact number 7. So we disregarded fact number 8 there. That is why we gave it a wrong. We did not credit that. Let's have a look at the final marks then. How many facts do we have there? We've got 5 facts. And we have 2 marks for language, which gives us a total of 7. Remember, if a fact is repeated, let's say you write one fact twice, that will be indicated and it won't be credited. So that will be wrong, but we also indicate with the letter R to show that it's a repetition of a fact. And we also indicate the number of the fact that has been repeated. In this case, it will be R7. So repetition of fact number 7. So the fact is marked as incorrect and R shows that it is repeated. The number is the fact that is repeated. That is very, very important. Now, let's have a look at the final word of warning. I would love to believe that you now have an understanding of how to go about with summary writing, with the 5 steps that we have spoken about, 5 golden rules, and how to apply your reading strategies so that you can understand the text, and how you also come up with the listing and the writing. But most importantly, make it a point that at the end of each and every summary, you indicate the total number of words that you have used. So this is what you need to guard against. It's a warning. You are seriously being warned now. Let's have a look at the first one. Avoid lifting by trying to write the summary in your own words. That's a warning. The second one, avoid the use of figurative language, reported speech, redundancy, repetition, examples, and illustrations. Avoid using those ones. And lastly, I love this one because I've been talking about it throughout my presentation. Avoid being dishonest by misstating the exact number of words used. These are the final word of warning. You need not do this. You need to avoid all of these. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. But before I close, let me kindly remind you that please remember to sanitize. Remember to wear your mask. Always maintain social distancing and keep safe. Thank you very much.